All right, we are recording.
Okay, well, welcome. Um, we are going to just ask that you put the 4-H member's name and the projects they're taking to judging. If you don't care to type that into the chat for us, just so we just so we know who's with us and we can be able to record that. But we also are recording in case people couldn't join tonight, so that way they can watch this to get some pointers for project judging. So what we're going to start out doing is just talking about like posters and displays that you bring to project judging. And then we're also going to Haven is going to talk a little bit about giving some pointers on doing a good interview during project judging. Haven is a former 4-H'er and she is our current summer student worker. And so she's got lots of experience going through judging at the county and state level. And then she's also worked project judgings at the county and state level. So then after we kind of give our tips and pointers, then we'll take questions. And if you're watching this later and you have questions, feel free to call us at the office or drop us an email, and we'll try and help you out before judging next week. So with that, um, so what does make a good project poster or display? And there are several things. You may want to make sure that your poster or display, whatever it is you're taking to judging, shows what you learned in your 4-H project. You want it to be well organized. You want it to be eye catching and easy to read. And you want it to be neat. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, looks like, a graphic designer did it. Sorry. But it should be neat and eye catching and easy to read, and all of those things listed there. So then, um, all of our projects, most of our projects, require some sort of an educational display, which may include a poster, but they don't have to be a poster. Some of our folks, if they're doing the fishing project, maybe they make a poster and they bring their tackle box, um, and their fishing pole, or something showing their project that shows what they've learned, what they've done, and is indicative of the project they've taken. We've had kids, of course, if you do a woodworking project, you're going to bring what you made for your woodworking project or welding. But you also want to make sure that whatever it is you're bringing, that you followed the project requirements in the front of the book, that if there are specific size specifications or specific tools that you should have used, um, if make sure that you have followed those requirements in the front of the book. So oops. So these projects require some sort of an educational display. And so that could be a poster, it could be a scrapbook, but a lot of our 4-H members do posters because then those posters can be displayed in the 4-H booth during the fair. So that's why the posters kind of do double duty. You can use them for project judging, and then you can use them in the booth during the fair as your exhibit. So there are some projects though that require other types of exhibits. So child and family development, all of these listed here: quilting, creative arts, photography, scrapbooking, theater arts, writing, food and nutrition. Those all require something different than a poster. So you do want to check and make sure you're following your project requirements. And those can be found on our website. And there are some more over here. So there are also a few projects that require a trifold display. So if you go to the state fair, at the county fair, we'll judge for self-determined projects. We'll judge no matter what you bring, we'll judge it. But if you qualify for the state fair, at the state fair, it has to be on a trifold display board. Um, so I just recommend if you haven't already done it, put it on a trifold so you don't have to do it twice. For all projects that require an educational display, this is saying 14 by 22 poster. These are actually Adams County's rules. Ours, you can do a regular size poster board. So for ours, you can do bigger, but you can take different size displays to the state fair and our fair. That those numbers, we're using a PowerPoint that was developed by an Adams County 4-H volunteer at the time. So this says go to the Adams County Extension website. Ours is just the same, except it's scioto.osu.edu. That's where you can find our project requirements. And then the project guidelines are in the front of your project book. So be sure you read those so you know what the expectation for completing that project. There are some projects that can take multiple years to complete, so you may only have to do a certain number of the activities in it. So just be aware of that when you go to judging. Helpful tips to make a good poster or display. So you want to decide on a subject to express one main thought or idea. You don't want to have your poster show everything you learned or did with the project. And then you want to make a list to narrow down your main points. So something that's really important is selecting a title. You want it to be short, simple, attract attention. And then you want to plan an arrangement to attract and interest the viewer, provide good balance, whether your poster is formal or informal, be simple, neat, and clear. You want it to be interesting, and you want it to be in good taste. So you do want to influence the viewer's eye when you are creating a display. The direction the objects and figures face. The eye shouldn't lead in and around the eye should lead in and around the display, not away from it. So a lot of times when you're putting pictures on it, you want to make sure, like, to really make it look nice, you want the pictures facing inward instead of outward off of the display. If it's a picture of somebody doing archery and they're shooting their arrow and the picture has them shooting this way, you want that pointing in towards the center of the poster instead of off the side of the poster. It's just kind of a design element that makes it more appealing to look at. You want to watch the sequence of information. The eye moves from one to the next in logical order. And so when people are reading, they tend to start, when we read something, we tend to start in the top left-hand corner. If you think about reading a newspaper, if anybody still reads newspapers, but you start in the top left-hand corner. And when you read a newspaper, what they find is people tend to glance at it in a Z-shaped pattern. So you're going to want to make your stuff so it's kind of appealing as someone is glancing at it, but it's also then in order. So you want things to be in an order that makes sense. And you also want to make sure that you have the right amount and arrangement of contrasting areas. So actually having information, but then also having some white space or blank space on your poster so the viewer or the judge doesn't get overwhelmed. So be attention getting, make it neat. No one wants to take time to read a messy poster. Use information that is brief and easy to read. Watch out for clutter. Don't try to put too much information or graphics on a poster because you're going to be there talking about it. So put things that help guide you through the project or highlight the project. Then you can explain those things further as you're talking to the judge. You want to include pictures or charts if they help explain your project. So start with a rough draft on plain paper. If you are typing it, you want to print all your text and roughly sketch out your graphics just on a sheet of paper and kind of have an idea of where you want to place things. Check your spelling and grammar and then check it again. And my previous life, I was a copy editor. So those things are really important. If you have spelling errors and grammatical errors, then the judge thinks you haven't taken time to put the time into the poster or the display. Ask your parents or advisors to look at your poster sketch and make suggestions before you do the real thing. So then these are just some other helpful tips when you're doing a display. So you want to use a font or a letter style that is easy to read. Fancy letters are neat, but sometimes they can be hard to read. So if you're going to use a cutesy font, make sure that it's easy to read. Are some of the samples easier to read than others? So I'm going to give you a few here. And when you look at those, some of those are easier to read than others. And, the ones that are simple and bolder are easier to read if you're reading them on a poster. Now, if you were doing something about I don't know, a cooking project and you had done a salsa or something, the one word there, that the third one down on the left hand side, it kind of looks like a festive type of font. Maybe you would use that for the title, but then you would want to use your fonts for printing as just a plain um, font, kind of like the one right next to it. Maximum text size for display, 10 feet or less away from the viewer. You want your font to be a large font is 1 inch, easy to read is 3/4 of an inch, fairly easy to read is a 1/2 inch, possible is 1/4 of an inch, and cannot be read is 3/16 of an inch or less. So if you're thinking about this poster being in your 4-H club's booth during the fair, you have to think people are going to be far away from it. So you do want them to be able to see and see what you've done. So you want to think about this. You don't want little itty bitty teeny tiny font, because if somebody's standing there looking at your poster while it's in the booth, they may not be able to read it. So this is something that's really important. It drives me crazy when I'm at meetings and people use dark colored fonts on dark colored backgrounds. Like in that bottom right box, you can't read that. You can't read the blue font on a red background either. So when you are doing your poster, if it's not just black and white type, you want to make sure that you use dark lettering on a light background or light lettering on a dark background, because light lettering on light backgrounds and dark lettering on dark backgrounds just does not show up, and it's too hard to read. So when you're making it, you want to take your time, don't rush, be sure you spell everything correctly. Neatness does count. Watch out for fingerprints and smudges. If you want, you can neatly label your poster either on the lower front corner or on the back. You'll want to put your name, age, your club, and your project name. So you want to make sure that you represent yourself and your club well. Your poster will be exhibited throughout Fair Week. Many of your friends and family will see it while it's in the 4-H booth during the fair. So it's something to be proud of and to show off what you've learned through your 4-H project. So you're not just using it for project judging, you're also then using it as your exhibit during the fair. So do your best to make it educational and visually appealing. You guys have any questions? I'm gonna click out of that and stop sharing. So it should be. So now I'm going to turn it over to Haven and let Haven give a few pointers for interviewing with the judge, because Haven has done lots of judging interviews. So Haven, what kind of tips do you have for when you are doing an interview with a project judge at judging?
So, just a few quick tips and tricks. The first is before your interview even starts, make sure you shake the hand of your judge and introduce yourself. Kind of sets the tone for the rest of the interview, shows professionalism and confidence that you're about to ace the next 10 minutes of your interview. All you've got to say is like, "Hello, my name is Haven. It's nice to meet you." Then go ahead, sit down, set up your display. If you have anything to get out, like Joe mentioned, you might have like a tack box or a first aid kit. If there's anything you need to open up to prepare, go ahead and do that after you introduce yourself. The first question most judges are going to ask you is simply, "Tell me about your project." And that is a very vague and open ended question for a reason. They want to see how much you actually just know about your project off the gate, how much you can just remember that you did all summer. You've worked so hard on these projects. So they just want to see all the activities you did. This is a great chance for you to show if there was maybe something you really enjoyed, if like your favorite activity, that would be a great chance to talk about that. If there was something you learned or something you didn't expect to learn throughout your project, that would be when you would mention it. Your interview times are only about 10 minutes long, and by the end of your 4 H career, at least for me, I was able to talk the whole 10 minutes based on that very first question of "Tell me about your project." Because the more you talk, the less the judge is going to have to ask you and ask you to elaborate or expand on. If you already know everything about your project, you can just talk about it and go ahead and demonstrate that mastery and understanding so that they don't need to have you answer any additional questions or elaborate. The way I've always looked at it is kind of assume your judge knows absolutely nothing about your project, even though they are going to have some experience in that area. Explain every little detail to them as if you're explaining it to someone who knows nothing about it. One, that fills time, and two, again, demonstrates your mastery and understanding of that project. Another thing is some judges are going to have some sample questions and they might ask you to elaborate on something. If you really don't know the answer to a question, you can always ask them to clarify or ask it in a different way. And if you still really, really don't know, it is better to say that you don't know than to come up and try and come up with an answer and guess wrong. That has bitten me in the butt at State Fair before, where I tried to come up with an answer and then I looked a little silly in front of the judge because it was totally wrong. I think the judge probably would have appreciated had I just admitted I wasn't entirely sure what the answer was. But hopefully, if you're able to talk the whole time on that first question, that won't even be a problem you run into. A few other tips and tricks are to speak slowly, calmly, and confidently. Don't rush, don't slur your words. I know it can be kind of stressful, or maybe you're super excited to talk about your project, so it can get really easy to start speeding up your voice. But just remember, kind of take a few deep breaths, think about what you're going to say before you say it, and that'll help also fill in some of that time. And again, just show that you're really confident and relaxed. Another thing is to smile. Act like you're having a good time. I know it's kind of a competition that we're preparing you for, but really, all of these interviews are just preparing you for real life interviews or job interviews in the future. And the main thing is that you're having fun. That is like the whole goal of 4 H is that you're learning and having fun while doing it. So smile, act like you're excited to be at project judging because your judges are really excited to hear about what you've been working on, and they want to see that you're excited and enthusiastic about whatever you completed. At the end of the interview, they might ask you, if you have any final things to say about your project. That is kind of your last chance. If there is something maybe you forgot to mention earlier in your interview, that would be a great time to put it in there. I'm sure there is something you can find about your project books that you could talk about in that last little section there. You don't want to leave the interview thinking you forgot about something or that you could have talked more about a specific topic or area. And then my last tip and trick is to basically memorize your project books. I know a lot of the project books have tiny little boxes on certain pages that say like tips and tricks or if you didn't know, and they'll have kind of random fun facts sprinkled throughout. I really suggest reading those and knowing those because a lot of the questions that the judges will ask are typically based on those little extra tidbits of information because those kind of are above and beyond information beyond the activities that you're going to be doing anyway. So just knowing those again shows one that you care about the project to have read the entire book, and two that you really have a mastery and understanding of the project you've completed.
Thanks, Haven. I think those are all excellent, excellent points. And I did like when Haven said, if they ask you something and you don't know it, stop and think for a minute because maybe you do know it. But if you don't, just say, I'm not really sure about that, but I do remember blah, 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 blah. And you can tell them something else that you remember about your project. So even though you may not remember the question they asked you, if you then say, I don't remember that, but I do remember this part of my project. And that'll show them that you do know about your project. You are the one who completed your project. That's one of the things the judges want to see. They want to see that you actually did the work and it wasn't, your brother or sister or your mom or grandma or dad or somebody that did the project. They want to know that you did it, and they want to see what you learned by doing the project. So if you don't know the answer, don't panic and freak out. It's okay. But just do your best. Like Haven said, smile, have fun, keep eye contact. Eye contact is really important when you're talking to the judge. And yeah, just remember that these interviews, I remember when I was a 4-H'er, I did not like going to interviews. And I showed horses in the county I was in. We still had to go do an interview with a judge before we could even go to the fair. And I remember I was so shy and so backward, and it was painful. But the more I did it, the easier it got. So the first year when I was 9, it was really hard for me to talk to the judge because I was so shy. But by the time I was 14, 15, 16, I'd been doing it for so many years that it wasn't hard at all. And so that's what we want you to remember, is that, we want you to have fun. We don't want you to stress out too bad about it. We want you to do your best and show off what you did to the judge. And just know that when you're going through project judging, we hope that every year you get better at it. Because I know I've watched Haven through her 4-H career. When she was 9, she was a good speaker when she was 9, but she was not nearly as good as she is now. And it's because she's done it a whole lot over the course of her 4-H career. And so the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So you guys have any questions? What project? I didn't look in the chat. Malin is doing Horseless Horse and Let's Start Cooking and So Fun. So with Horseless Horse, if she brings the book and any sort of thing that is a display, it could be a poster, it could be, I know I've seen some kids that have brought for Horseless Horse, they had some of those like Breyer horses. And they brought them and talked about what the breeds were and what they learned about the breeds, or those types of things. Or you can just make a poster about your favorite breed, those types of things. For Let's Start Cooking, you will bring your completed project book and you'll bring your portfolio. And there are guidelines for the portfolio on our they're on our website, I believe. If you don't find them there, please call and ask, and I'll try and double check tonight and make sure they're there. They were, unless they got taken down for some reason. But the portfolio is 1 page per section in your foods project book. You don't want to add extra pages. You just want 1 page saying what you learned in that section. And when my daughter did food projects, and I know Haven did food projects, my daughter we took photos of her while she was cooking or prepping or doing different things and put those on that page. And then I had her just type up a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs about what she liked about that, or what she learned doing that recipe, or, what she didn't like about it. We don't like everything we learn in our projects. Sometimes we learn the things we don't like, or I learned by taking sewing that I don't like to sew. So I did that once, and I learned that was not something I wanted to spend my time doing. But So if you look at those project requirements for the food projects, the kids with food will just need to bring their project book and the portfolio. You don't have to prepare food and bring it. We used to do that, but we took that away probably about 6 or 7 years ago. So now you just bring your book and portfolio. And they will do a little skillathon skills type test with the food project. It's nothing hard, but it does have some questions about my plate, and then maybe like some cooking utensils, how to set the table, how to set a table, those type of things. Real simple, but it just makes it have a little hands-on component. Then I'm looking back up here. Sew Fun, she'll then, for sewing judging, you'll actually want to bring your completed project book and you'll want to wear whatever it is you made for your Sew Fun. And then for Lucian, the beginner fishing, you can make a poster or a scrapbook, but then if it helps, I always say anything that will help be a prompt to help the child talk about the project, bring it. I saw one time, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but my first year in this job, I had a kid who came to project judging, and the parent was helping the kid drag a wagon full of stuff in. And the kid was taking all kinds of projects, but they had, for their fishing project, they actually brought their fishing pole in their tackle box. And you don't have to do that, but if it helps you talk about what you did in the project, I think that's always a good thing. Or maybe you just bring the tackle box, or your favorite something. Or but if you make the poster to go with it, that always helps. And I think that's one of the things that I try to remind people too is when you're doing those displays or those posters, yes, they're to try and help the judge know what you did, but they also really serve as a great talking point or prompt for the child too, because it gives them something to talk about. They can look at the photos and the words, and it'll help guide them, as well as showing the judge what they learned. So that fishing 101, you would probably want to do a poster, your completed book, and then if they want to bring a fishing pole, tackle box, any of that kind of stuff. So for trifold posters, that's usually, what did I say, the self-determined project. It's just like one of the science fair trifolds that you can buy like at Walmart or Dollar General. They're I think they're probably about, what are they, probably 2 or 3 feet tall. I don't know if they're 36 inches tall, and then they kind of the sides flip in on it. So for the trifold poster, it's just like one of the ones you buy in the school supply section at Walmart. I think they have them at Kroger, Dollar General, Walmart. So that's what they want you to bring to the state fair with those self-determined projects. So that's what they recommend. You don't have to bring it to county judging, but if you do make it to state fair, then you would need to redo it. So I always hate if somebody has a great poster and then we're like, you really need to redo that before you go to state fair. For photography, you're going to want to bring the completed project book. And in the book, it's going to tell you different types of pictures that they needed to take. And so I believe that the photography project, like, you're going to have different examples of things you've taken photos of. Let me double, give me a second. I'm going to look it up here on my phone just to be sure, because sometimes they change these project requirements. So let me look and see. Do you remember, Haven, what they take for photography to state fair?
I don't, because photography is always judged in the Rhodes building, and I was always in just the general one.
I'm going to look it up. There is, if you want to know, so what I always tell people, I mean, for our project judging, we're probably not quite as strict as the state fair on what you bring. So, what I always recommend to our folks is to look and see what the state fair requirement is for that project, and then you can bring it to our county fair. We will gladly accept whatever the state fair says. Sometimes our project requirements just say to bring a poster or educational display, and they don't really give anything specific. But then the state fair requirement may say something, um, it may say something additional or more specific. Um, oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. I was trying to look up. Let's see here. Um, hold on, I will look it up here on my phone. Let's see, what is the other? Since you're doing the first part, do you do the whole book and stop at a certain activity because the book is used multiple years? Whatever it says in the front, I think it says in the front of the book that you're supposed to complete so many activities. And without me having it in front of me, I don't know that off the top of my head. Um, but whatever it says under project requirements in the front of that photography book, that's what you need to complete if it's your first year in that project. Um, let's see here. I'm going to try and find the state fair. If you want to see the state fair requirements for any of these projects, if you go to ohio4h.org, actually, let me see. I'll take you straight to the state fair. If you go to ohio4h.org, and then I'm going to put the link here. Um, well, I guess I probably should have put the HTTPS in front of it, and then it would actually let you click on it. But that actually has all of the projects that are judged at the state fair, and it tells you when it's judged. And if you win your category and qualify for state fair, we will print this information out and give it to you at the awards ceremony. But if you'd like to see it ahead of time, so you know what the expectations are as you're preparing your project, there you go. There's the link to it. Yes, you can do a drawing. You can do a drawing. You can take photos. You can type words, and or you can handwrite. Just make sure that it's neat and legible. Um, let's see here. I was gonna see. Uh, um, I was gonna try and look up. There's also, just for your information, if you go to that Ohio 4-H website, there's also what is called Project Central. And on Project Central, you can look up any 4-H project. And when you click on it, that project, it will give you like the first, it'll show you the beginning part of the project books. It'll tell you what the project requirements are, plus the first section. So it'll give you like the first, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, however many pages of the book. And you can actually see it and flip through it. So it's a great way to actually look and see what is required of a project before you enroll in it. So I'm looking at that photography project. Oops. Is that called basic photography? I think now. They keep changing the names of these projects, so then I have to, when they update them. Oh yeah, doing art would be great. I think that would be great. So basic photography basics. So let's see here. And then also in that Project Central, once you're done with the project, you can actually go in and rate it and tell what you liked about it. And they actually do pay attention to that. There was one project that um, the person who was in charge of our project books at the state fair when my daughter was younger stopped her and asked her about the project that she was taking. And my daughter said it was a cooking project. And she said the reason she chose the project was because um, it didn't have as many chapters in it. Because when she took the very first cooking project the year before, it had like 10 chapters and you had to do two recipes or maybe nine, and you had to do two recipes from every chapter, and it was really hard and she didn't like it. And so she told the person that, and it was about 3 years later they got rid of that project book, and because they had that complaint from lots of people. So they do actually take what you're saying into consideration. On the photography book, let me look and see here. uh, Project guidelines. Explore each of the 4 project areas: equipment, lighting, composition, skill building. In each area, complete the photo shoot activities, at least 2 of your choice, along with the talking it over activity. Take a part in 2 learning experiences, become involved in 2 leadership activities. And you know what? What you're doing right now, all of you can list this as a learning experience in the front of your project book. So you will put today's date and that you attended the project workshop by Zoom with your county, and you can list that as a learning experience for your project. So it says that you are supposed to complete each of the 4 project areas. So I guess you can just take it multiple years. Um, but yeah, that's what it says for the photography. Um, they change the names because they update the books. And so when they update them, they change the name of it. So I guess so. Sometimes they don't change them, but I think they try and make them more appealing. The fishing one kind of confused Haven and I because both fishing projects are named the same thing. They're both called Outdoor Adventurer, but then one's called Outdoor Adventurer Level 1, and then the other one is Outdoor Adventurer Fishing Level 2. Um, and we agreed that we thought that was confusing, that they should have made it was better when it was beginning fishing and intermediate fishing because then you knew what it was. So, does anybody else have any other questions? We're glad that you guys joined us. If you think of anything, also, if you don't care, if you didn't already do so, could you type your name and the projects that you are, or your 4-Hers name, if it's parents that are logged in with a younger 4-H member, type the 4-H member's name and the project that they're planning to exhibit and go through judging. If you don't care to type that in the chat, just so Haven and I know who all's on here and what projects you're taking. So, does anybody else have any other questions? Haven, do you have anything else to add? Anything you thought about?
I don't know if I necessarily have anything to add, but like if you guys think of any questions, I sent out that email today with all of your interview times. Feel free to shoot me an email if you think of something like afterwards that you really wanted to ask. and just then think about asking during it, I will respond as quickly as possible because I want you guys to all feel confident before your project judging. And I'm just really excited that you guys are taking STOL projects and are going to be competing in judging.
Yes, we're very excited. We actually had, I think, a few more people sign up for projects this year for project judging. So, but there's still not enough people going through project judging. So we're very glad that you guys are taking advantage of it. And it's, it's how you win trophies and ribbons and the fun things. So we're really excited. And once you go through judging, if you do qualify for state fair, we'll give you a state fair packet the night of the awards ceremony. And then you will have to come to our office afterwards, like the following week, to pick up your state fair passes. So if you qualify for state fair, then you'll get a pass to get into the state fair, and you'll be able to come to our office and pick that up. And we hope that a lot of you choose to go to the state fair and exhibit, because when our kids go, they tend to do very well. We just haven't had a lot of people go lately. Oh, I love your kitty. I'm a crazy cat lady, aren't I, Haven?
I wouldn't say crazy. Cat lady, yes.
Thank you. His name is Muffin.
Hi, Muffin.
I love that name.
So if you guys think of any questions you have, please reach out to myself or Haven. We'll be happy to help you. And then otherwise, we will see you Tuesday at Project.